Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of Duck The IRS podcast. I am Parham Khorsandi, managing partner of Victory Tax Lawyers. And on this episode, I got my main man, Amir Boroumand, my business partner, friend, coworker, colleague, partner since 2011. Amir, holler.
What's up, guys? I'm Amir Boroumand. As he said, I co-manage Victory Tax Lawyers with Parham Khorsandi, and I'm happy to be here today.
Thanks.
What are we talking about?
So the first episode, Amir, I'm sure you watched it and you were
Every
in
second
the background. We talked about the IRS and how there's two different parts. There's the assessment side and the collection side and how they're different. I think today we're going to talk about levies, garnishments, seizures, taking bank accounts, taking people's assets, the stuff the IRS was made to do.
The fear portion of it.
Yeah.
What everybody's worried about and scared of.
And last time we touched on levies a little bit, and we said how the IRS is different from other places where you don't need a judge, you don't need a judgment, you don't have a day in court. All the IRS has to do is send a couple notices, and with those notices, they could take your bank account, they can garnish wages, they could do all of that.
Yeah. I think the notice piece of it is most confusing for people.
Yeah.
Every time I get a call, or majority of the time I get a call for levies, the first thing they say is they didn't tell me they were going to do this. I didn't get a notice. I didn't know that this was going to happen. And sometimes that's the case, but majority of the times there's some letter or notice that was sent that just kind of goes unanswered. I think one of the key pieces that I would look for is if you get certified mail.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Jump on that.
So the regular mail that the IRS sends are just like reminder notices. But then when the certified mail comes and you have to actually sign for it, that should get everybody's attention on the levies.
Yeah, I think the majority of the notices are ending up in the drawers, in people's drawers, just shoving it and putting it away. But if it's certified, it could be a notice of levy. It could be the actual levy. It could be a lien that should not be confused with a levy. Many people think lien and levy is the same thing.
Well, what's the difference? Tell us.
Lien is, federal tax lien is placed on assets. So it's not a seizure. They're not going to take anything away from you.
Like a levy. So the levy is like a seizure.
Levy is a seizure. They're grabbing the money out of your bank account. They're notifying your payroll department that they want a portion of your check sent to them. There's some collection action. A lien is placed on assets if you own any. If you don't own any, then it doesn't necessarily affect you. But
it's like a public record.
It's public record, and the number one instance in which it is exercised is if you're trying to refinance or sell your house. You try to refinance or sell your property, title company is running a search, boom, lien shows up, and then IRS is involved in your transaction. But outside of that, lien's not going to affect you. Back in 2018, they decided not to report it to the credit bureaus anymore, so it shouldn't show up on a credit report. But a levy is actually taking money out of your bank account or paycheck. Yeah. But a levy could also mean technically that they're going to take your property. Yeah. But they don't do that. They're not in the business of putting people out of their homes.
But out of their rental property, maybe.
Maybe a rental property, but if you don't respond, that's more likely to happen than not. The problem is people don't respond. And when they get these notices that these levies might happen in the next 30 days, they don't respond.
Yeah.
And there's so many rights they have.
We've had clients that are so scared to open their mail and don't check their mail that they will send us a large envelope of unopened mail, and they want us to open it for them because they are so scared of what's behind them and what's in the mail. So the number one way to avoid these levies is going to be just open your mail. Open your mail. Take a look at the notices. We talked a little bit about this last time. You're not going to get a phone call first from the IRS or an email or a text message from Mr. Johnson from the IRS texting you to go get a gift card from Ralph's and send it to him because he's from the IRS. None of that stuff's going to happen. You're going to get mail. The mail is going to come certified. So if you haven't moved recently and you're getting these kind of certified mail, that should really be a wake-up call that the levies are coming.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. The best way to avoid any kind of collection action in the form of seizure is to avoid not opening up your mail.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like they just don't want to deal with it. There's like a anxiety that comes with it.
Of course.
But in my mind, I'm thinking, isn't there more anxiety not knowing when it's going to come versus like, hey, it can be stopped?
Well,
you know?
I mean, it's the same thing with a doctor. You think something is wrong. You don't want to go to the doctor to get the bad news that's in the back of your mind. Same thing with this. People know that they owe. They just hope that they're not going to get levied, and so they don't want to deal with it.
It's kind of like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Versus like checking to see if there's a bullet in there and just not shooting the gun. I don't know. That's my that's my take on it. But I will say one thing: if you're in California or maybe New York or one of the other aggressive states, levies happen like very frequently,
more than the IRS.
And I'm not sure that they all come certified, but they're very quick to take your stuff.
Yeah.
So, in any case, I would call or contact somebody to represent you, preferably Victory Tax Lawyers.
Plug.
But I think that people don't know that they don't have to pay if they can't. And they're so scared to call because they think that, they're going to wake up the sleeping giant or the beast.
Right.
And it really doesn't work that way.
No, it's an algorithm.
It's not like, they haven't been reaching out to me, so if I don't contact them, nothing's going to happen. It's all really kind of luck.
It's not like that. And so Amir touched on a point that is very important, which is, we're in California. Our headquarters is here in LA. And a lot of our clients are California constituents. And the California Franchise Tax Board is more aggressive than the IRS sometimes. Not sometimes, they usually are. So they will levy multiple sources multiple times before the IRS has even sent their first notice. So right now, if you're living in California or New York, which are the hottest places, or anywhere that has income tax, you got to not only look out for IRS letters about potential levies, but also the state agencies as well. Those are two different components. We have the federal agency, which is the IRS, trying to levy and sending notices, and then their counterpart on the state level in California, it's called Franchise Tax Board. Every state has their own Department of Revenue that's dealing with that. That's a whole other department that you have to deal with that can also levy and start attaching to your funds.
Yeah, a lot of people think California Franchise Tax Board and IRS are the same thing.
Are the same, yeah.
So
completely different. They doesn't matter if you set up an installment agreement with one, the other one can come and get you.
They're not in communication with each other. They're actually
not on the collection
competitors.
piece. Yeah.
They're trying to get the money first.
Yeah, exactly. They're both trying to get the money from our
like
clients.
Macy's and Bloomingdale's.
As soon as possible, yeah. So moving on to different types of levies. So the main way that the IRS gets paid is going to be through structured payment plans. I would say most of the money coming in is through structured payment plans, but probably a quarter of the money or a third of the money coming into the IRS is by force. It's by the IRS saying, we're not going to wait around for you, the taxpayer, to take any action. We are going to do the taking on our own. And so that's where they start to levy. And so the two main ways that they levy is going after your bank account. Amir loves to tell the story about your client that went to go get gas one morning. And
I think that always happens at the most inopportune moment.
Right.
Like whether it's you're pumping gas at the gas station and your bank card doesn't work, you're at the grocery store in line and you're declined and it's embarrassing, or you're about to go on a trip, it's Thanksgiving or some holiday, and all of a sudden your bank account's emptied, or you get that email or the call into the payroll office like, hey, we got this letter from the IRS. We can't pay you unless you get a release. Those situations are just high pressure because people need to survive. They got to pay the bills. It's not like the levy's going to happen at the perfect time. It's always right before the rent's due.
It's always the wrong time.
It's always the wrong time. But there are ways to get the levy released. So if you do get a garnishment of your paycheck or you get your bank account emptied, we could get the money back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do in a lot of cases.
And if you do have a wage garnishment, so the bank levy, you know, they go after your bank account, and then a wage garnishment, they contact your employer and say, hey, you know, you have to deduct a certain amount each pay period. And so based on this table that we have that the IRS puts out, if you are a single person, regardless of how much money you're making, and you get a wage garnishment, you can be left with only like $238 a week to survive off of after a wage garnishment, which is not a lot of money at all. And then the remaining amounts would go to the IRS.
Definitely wouldn't use the word survive.
Yeah, no, you can't survive.
Not enough money. $230 is nothing.
And so if you're in that situation, you got to kind of prove to the IRS that, hey, you know, I'm going to be homeless if you guys continue this levy.
I think there's two elements, right? The bank and the paycheck.
Yeah.
For the bank, IRS will send out the levy to the bank. Once they put a freeze on that money, it's not gone.
Yeah.
They have time. Time.
So what does that mean? Yeah, explain that, because a lot of people think that as soon as the levy hits their bank, that it's sent to the IRS.
The money's
but it's
gone.
not.
I don't see it in my account.
Just because you don't see it in the account, it's not gone.
Yeah,
right,
no,
Amir?
the IRS, will not get a check from the bank for 21 days. So that means you have 21 days to contact the IRS, whatever department, if it's with a revenue officer or with the automated collection system, to try to get a release sent to the bank so you can get your money back. So there is a chance that you could get your funds back in your account. Unfortunately, in most cases, for some reason, people wait until the 20th day. And it's really hard to get a levy released.
Oh, tell them about the revenue
day.
officer with the check from the other day.
I had a client recently that got a bank levy. And
just to be clear, this bank levy was before he hired us, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, all right.
Of course.
This was not on our watch. Our clients don't get
levied under my watch. But he got the bank levy, and by the time that we got the revenue officer to send the release, it was on the same day that the check was sent by the bank to the
21st day.
It crossed on the 21st day. And this is actually a nice story. Not everybody at the IRS is evil or mean. The revenue officer ended up sending the check back. So they let the client keep the money despite the fact that the check was mailed and received by the IRS.
Wow.
Which is
That's
rare.
Huge, yeah.
It's very rare. But they do it. Which made me think of one thing I want to point out. If you're hiring somebody or not, have your bank's fax number available. The department that needs to get the release, because otherwise IRS will mail it. And if they mail it...
Oh, yeah. That eats up so much of your 21 days.
For some reason, when the IRS mails stuff, it takes way longer than it normally should. So fax numbers help to expedite
for
getting
payroll too. So if you're going to get a levy released by the IRS, they are willing to fax whoever needs to see the release.
Except you. They don't want to fax it.
Yeah, they won't fax us unless we force them. But they'll fax like the legal department of the bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase. They all have legal departments that deal with these levies, and they all have fax numbers. Or if you get a wage garnishment, you're going to have to provide your payroll department or HR department's fax number and have the IRS directly fax to them the release.
And the name of the person.
Yeah, and all that info. So
Deborah and payroll.
It's important to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last 4 years, IRS has been very reluctant and not really sending out levies.
Yeah.
So there's this misconception that, oh, I'm okay. Yeah. Everything's fine. They're not going to send it out. But at some point, they're going to start
getting back to pre-COVID numbers.
We're close. I'm hearing from various reps that I talk to that it's happening very soon.
Yeah.
And if you're working with a revenue officer, those are the levies that have been going out.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's like a direct field officer that's working on your account, not like a 1-800 drone at the IRS. Like you have a dedicated revenue officer assigned those guys will come to your house and those guys will levy you at any time.
It sounds better to have somebody assigned, but it really isn't.
No,
so
this is not like concierge at a hotel.
no,
You don't want
absolutely
this.
not. I need somebody I could talk to. I gotta wait on hold,
Yeah.
because if you get somebody you're working with directly and they're not good, you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
That's it. Unless, I mean, obviously, if you have appeal rights, there's various things you can do, but. Another reason you should not wait, outside of obviously getting levied, is at some point your case may come across an individual's desk. And if it does, it's much worse than if you had that 1-800 number.
Yeah.
Because at least with the 1-800 number, you could talk to different people. Not everybody there is the same. There are a lot of people who want to help you. They tend to be in the Midwest and on the West Coast. Holtzville, which is in New York, is just known for being very aggressive. I don't know if it's cold weather or what it is, but there are some very nice reps in Holtzville. So if you guys are watching by chance, we like you. But call, get on the phone with the IRS, get on the phone with an attorney, have somebody reach out, get ahead of it. One of the main things that I've noticed that lead to this issue to begin with is this idea that you're going to catch up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, no, I'm good. I just need to get this next deal and then I'm going to catch up. The problem is that they're not thinking about paying the tax on the deal, right? So it's
like a cycle.
You've been living off tax-free money this whole time, and all of a sudden you're going to flip a switch and it doesn't work that way. And then the next thing you know, 3 or 4 years have piled up. And then
that's like a classic situation.
It's it. I mean, I think the majority of people are in that boat. They want to pay their taxes. They want to catch up, but they can't.
Yeah.
Right? Because
it's
life
hard.
costs money.
It's hard.
Life's expensive.
So, avoiding a levy and action from the IRS is probably 100 times easier than getting a levy released once it's happened. So don't be on that side of, waiting for something bad to happen. And then once something bad happens, it's very hard to reverse it. We want everyone listening here and all taxpayers to try to get in front of the matter. So one phone call and you can avoid a levy. But to get a levy released and get the money back into your bank account or have your HR manager not enforce the levy, that is going to take more than one phone call. That's going to take a lot of paperwork and proof that it's causing a hardship and all that. So avoiding the levy is the number one goal for us as attorneys is, protecting our clients' pockets, protecting their income, protecting their bank accounts, keeping money in their pocket. If we can't do that, then it's all for nothing, because that's like our main goal is to make sure the IRS does not get paid unless we have an exact formula for an installment agreement or some type of compromise.
I think on top of that too, it's like the money is important, obviously, but the anxiety and the stress that the client has when we're trying to get the funds back for them or get the garnishment released, and the stress it puts on people and their families and their relationships, is really, really, really bad, right? I think that most people, when they're thinking about, should I hire somebody? What can I do with this? Are thinking, all right, how much money can I save?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get that, but some savings are not measurable, right? Like
not monetary savings.
Right. Dollars are tangible.
Yeah.
You can hold the cash and you can see how much you're holding, versus not. But the stress in your life, the anxiety, constantly worrying about this, not being able to focus on other things.
Especially husband and wife.
Man.
The late night pillow talk about tax matters.
There are no late night pillow talk. It's just the husband like, I hope she doesn't find out.
Yeah, we've seen that too. The bickering at the dinner table, the stress, we see that. And our clients, when they first talk to us, they say, I'm really stressed out. And usually by the end of that first conversation, they feel better. Yeah.
They feel much better.
They feel better. Yes, we protect them from the levies and all that. There's that monetary aspect. But there's such a big emotional and psychological aspect to the IRS as well.
100%. I agree. I feel for a lot of the clients because they've been carrying around this unnecessary stress.
Right.
It could have been addressed. One of the main things I see by the time it gets to a point for a levy, maybe the clients try to have several agreements, and in a lot of instances, at least in my experience, the client is trying to pay back the old debt.
Yeah.
And they're not focused on paying their current taxes. Right. And I think that really is something that people miss.
Yeah.
The problem is there is a problem that they owe back taxes,
right.
but the main problem that they have is that they're not paying taxes. The byproduct
for the current year.
Right. So the byproduct is that you have past due taxes, but the main issue is you are not paying your taxes for today and tomorrow.
Right.
And that's going to be key in any solution
Absolutely.
that you seek. You have to start paying the taxes. So if you're paying old taxes or getting on a payment plan or something like that,
to the detriment of the new taxes, then you're going to just continue in this cycle. Yeah.
It's a cycle. So get ahead of it. My analogy is you're in a boat. The boat has a hole in it.
Oh, yeah, I love this. I mean, I hear Amir say this all the time.
You hear me?
Yeah, go. I love this.
I'm on the phone, but you're in a boat. There's a hole in the boat. Water's coming in.
Back taxes.
Well, the back taxes is the water that's in the boat, right? And you're scooping the water out of the boat. Plug the hole.
Yeah.
Paying your current taxes is plugging the hole first, then scooping the water out, right?
Absolutely.
The water in there is the back taxes, but you got to plug the hole first. Otherwise, it's going to continue to sink.
Yeah.
So I think that get on top of the notices, obviously, if you get any notices. If you don't want to wait till it gets to that point, even better. If you do get a levy, we can fix it in most cases. But don't be scared.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really why we started the Duck the IRS podcast, is because we want to provide useful, practical information for everybody so that you guys are not scared of the IRS. And you know, when they do throw something at you, you can duck them and get away from it and not be at the behest of the IRS. So really, this is what the podcast is for. Amir, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have Amir on more often on the Duck the IRS podcast. Second episode, all about levies. Hopefully everybody is learning something and having a good time and just getting an understanding of how the IRS works. And we will continue on with more episodes.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.